Trying to get onto Gage Cloud itself, where our customers use the portal to track their gauging system, is pretty easy. What I do is I go on to msiviking.com, and this is our actual store website. From there, you can click on, if you see the little Gage Cloud up here, the little blue cloud. Once you click on that, it's going to have you use your email address, which will be your work email address, and then a password. If you do not have an actual existing password set up yet, please contact your sales representative, or you can contact MSI Viking and they will get one set up for you. And what that will look like is you will receive an automated email through the system. It'll always be your work email address as your user ID, and then you create your own password. That link is only good for 24 hours, so you want to make sure that you create that password as soon as you get that email, so that email doesn't expire. Once you get that email set up and your password, you can plug that into here and you can hit login. Once you hit login, it's going to bring you to the home page of MSI Gage Cloud. This is what the home page will look like for you. A lot of my customers go into the Gage Cloud to handle a lot of their equipment, check for certs, see when actual gauges are expired and whatnot. From there, what you want to do is hover over MSI Gage Cloud, hover over equipment, and then you click on equipment, the second equipment that populates. What this will do is this will bring up every single gauge in the system that we have on record for you. So here is all the gauges. It says right here, we've got 449 gauges listed total under your account. From there, you can check out the gauges, what you want to do. Because this is a test website that I'm using, it shows MSI Test Cal Company. Your actual company name will be on the top right-hand corner. When you see that, you'll know you're in the right account. If you have multiple locations that you take care of as a quality person, you can either go, sometimes couple of my customers have plant 1, plant 2, plant 3, and they all have different addresses. If you do that, you can click on this test company or your name of your company at the top right-hand side. It'll give you a drop-down menu that you have access to. So you can click on plant 1 if you want to, plant 3 if you want to. And that's how you would toggle in between the multiple locations that you have based on a physical address. Going under here, there's multiple things that you can do on this particular portal. So what I do is I go under view. I'm going to just use the top one on here and I'm going under view. A lot of customers, if they have to discard gauges, if they have to get rid of gauges or they're not repairable, as MSI Viking does gauge repairs as well, you would hit your edit button. And from there, since this is live, once you click everything on the Gage Cloud, it is live. This is not going through a person. You can hit inactivate if it's no longer working or it's just no longer valid. And then you hit save. I'm not going to hit save right now. Actually, this is a test site. So let's go ahead and hit save. And that'll inactivate that gauge for you. It's never permanently gone. So if you do accidentally remove a gauge from the system, you can always bring it back. That's not a problem. Once this goes back to the main screen, you will see show inactives. If you click on that, that'll actually pull up a list of all the gauges that you have inactive or that you've inactivated in the system under there. Another thing that you can do is go under view. This will tell you what the gauge is, the last time it was calibrated, the date that it was created. Here's the last calibration date. Then you would scroll down a lot of my customers scroll down to the middle and then they see they're looking for the code. That URL code right on that screen is actually your cert. So this is your A2LA accredited certification for that particular gauge. This will tell you that it was, when it was last completed, when it's due next, the frequency, the how long the calibration frequency lasts, if it was in tolerance, and so forth. From there, I'm going to go back one more page. So that's the quickest way that I show, especially if customers are trying to locate one particular gauge. Another thing you can do is this little filter button. You want to click on this little filter button. As we have 448 gauges on here, there's only showing about 25 gauges per page. So that's a lot to scroll through. So what I'm going to do is I already know my gauge ID is going to be what it actually is. So I'm going to plug this number in and tab out of that screen, and then it will just bring up that one individual gauge. Once it does that, you can do anything that we did before. You can open up the information. You can either send or look at your calibration cert on there. And then you want to make sure once you are complete that you do remove the gauge ID and hit tab out of there. Because if you don't do that, and the next time you go into your equipment list, it's only going to show that one gauge. And then, so I usually have customers saying, where did all my gauges go? It's because they have some sort of number in any of these particular sections in there. In each individual column. So let's say you want to hit the last calibration date. You can, if you do that, it's going to pull oldest to newest on the equipment list. So it's going to actually sort everything for you. We have a color-coded system at the bottom of the screen. As you can see, these are red on the screen listed here. I'm going to scroll down to the bottom of the screen. Everything is color coded. So everything that is due in this month, which would be for this month is June, it will be highlighted in yellow. If it's due next month, it's highlighted in green, which if it's in our gauge tracking system, you will get a 60-day reminder for, and then you will get a 30-day reminder for. And then anything in red, like we saw at the top of the screen, you will see that it is currently past due. So there, from there, you can see which is past due, what's due this month, and what was due last month. The next section I have on here is this is a complete gauge tracking system. So even if MSI Viking does not calibrate your gauge, you can actually add equipment into this into the tracking system to allow even items that MSI Viking does not calibrate into the system, so you still get that 60-day and 30-day reminder. Everything with a red asterisk on here has to be filled out in order to be completed. So you've got your gauge ID number that you signed to it, the social security number, manufacturer, model, and then your frequency. So this would be like 1 year frequency, 2 years, 6 months, whatever you choose. It's completely up to you. I do want to reiterate though, that once you put a last calibration date and you put the scheduled due date on there and you hit submit, there is no way to alter those particular dates. It's almost like set in stone. Then you have to email your sales rep and they have to go in and manually change it on the back end. Now there's two options on here. You can do due date and static. And what that does is, let's say your calibration is due June 24th of 2024. It's going to physically have 1 year in there. If that's your 1 year interval frequency that you're doing, you can put that in there and then it'll schedule the exact time, June 24th of the next following year. If you do due dates at the end of the month with your gauges, you're not going to get a reminder until June 30th, or you're not going to get it scheduled. And then it's going to show the last calibration date was June 24th of 2024, but it's going to have a scheduled due date of the last day of that month. Once you hit submit and it'll create that Gage ID for you. You can attach that third party cert from another company. There's two ways you can do that. You can assign or put in the Gage ID that you've signed. You want to put in the calibration date on here as well as the results. It'll tell you if you can put in there intolerance, adjusted, failed, and so forth. You can either choose a file or you can drag your file into this section and it will save on there as well. So if you have multiple download or certs that you need to download, this is the next section that you would go to. You would hover over download certs file, download certs to zip file. What that looks like for you, you're going to type in your own email address for where the certs are going to be emailed to you. There's two options that you can choose from. You can do by calibration date range. So you can do January 1st, 2024 to June 24th to 2024, and it will send all of those certs where we've calibrated or all the certs in file for those for that time period. It'll email it over to you in a zip file. Another way you can do it is click here and it says by calibration done the last 60 days. So let's say you had a huge on-site calibration that was done and you want all those files sent to you for the last 60 days. And so it'll pull those last 60 days and you hit submit and it'll get emailed directly to your email address listed there. So you don't have to do one at a time. You can do multiple. In-lab calibration, create quote or work order form. This is requesting a quote in the Gage Cloud section. So depending on where you are physically located, the closest lab to you. We are in Canton, Michigan. So I'm going to click Canton, Michigan. And then I'm going to choose, let's say I'm just going to do 1 month's worth. I'm going to do for the month of July because next month is coming up. I'm going to do July 1st to the very last month. And how do you want this shipped back to you? You can choose UPS, FedEx, or if your local facility provides the service, you can do free pickup. If you want us to charge your actual freight account, you can plug in your UPS, FedEx number, or however you use that shipment in there, and then you want to hit submit. What the system is going to do is it's going to pull everything that needs to be calibrated within that time frame. On this particular one, I only have one. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and then I'm going to hit submit. And what it's going to do, it's going to shoot you over a quote for those particular gauges. For the larger capital equipment, like this one is a CMM, that'll be sent over to you separately because there's travel involved. If it's stuff that's coming into our facility, like handheld stuff, like gauges, calipers, indicators, and so forth, the quote's pretty quick. It comes through pretty quick. A lot of my customers use equipment AT MSI labs and what is at our MSI lab. So this tells us which orders are currently physically at our facility. It's another way to track and see where your gauges are and how long we've had them and what's going on. Taking a look at the first one, it says the date was June 13th. It looks like we're waiting on the customer. We are waiting for the delivery of the gauges to come into us. The next one, it just says calibration. This is our sales order number. This is our internal number that we've created. This is your purchase order number. So if you need to look it up by purchase order number, it'll show there as well. It'll show you which location out of our 5 facilities that are these gauges are physically at. We've got Cincinnati, Charleston, Canton, Duncan for these particular locations. It's giving you the model number, the equipment gauge ID. It says the check-in date. So this will give you the time frame that we receive those gauges into each one of these facilities, how many days we've had it, and how many business days. We always work off of business days. It's usually 7 business day turnaround time.